All right, so the next thing that I'm going to do is kind of shape the inside river. There's a little bit of a kind of a curve in this one already, but I want to make it a little bit more aggressive on the top so it's not so straight, so it looks like a river. I'm going to do it on both sides. It can be as extreme or as subtle as you want, but I'm also, because of how this is rough right here, I'm going to go ahead and sand that down as well. To kind of give you an idea, this is kind of what it ended up turning out like. It doesn't need to be a bunch. Like I said, you can get really aggressive and get really deep if you want to, but I'm just trying to do something simple on this one. It kind of gives it the appearance of a live edge. All right, this is what I came up with. Something pretty simple. It's not as cool looking as an actual live edge, but it gives it a little bit of a river appearance. Just keep in mind that when you flatten these out, whether it's just with sanding or if you're running through a planer, you're going to take some of that off. So just make sure you go deeper and not just the top corner. So now that I got the sanding done, and I'm ready to go ahead and insert the pieces into the box, into my mold. You want to make sure that the pieces are snug, but they're not so snug so that way when you push down, you're moving and removing all the silicone out of the way. So it should just drop in there. And this one's a little bit tight, so we're gonna have to remove some material from that. And this one's pretty good, so that one's just gonna fit right in there. There we go. So now I've got both of them in there. Ready to start prepping to pour. So the last thing that you want to do as you're prepping your wood to pour the epoxy is seal these edges off. It's especially critical if you've got an actual live edge piece or something like this where there's a lot of voids, or if you're actually using a true live edge piece. You want to make sure you get as much of the bark off as possible. And then go ahead and seal it down. But you want to make sure you get a good sanding in, and then I'll show you how to seal it with the epoxy. All right, now you want to go ahead and mix your epoxy, and you only need a little bit, enough just to cover the edges. Don't use a big container and try to pour your one-to-one mix or whatever your mix is, because you're going to have a ton of leftover. The best thing I found is get some pumps that fit some old containers that you've used before for the same mix, and just keep refilling those as you go along. All right, so the epoxy that I'm using, you want to use the same epoxy that you're going to actually do your pour with. And I'm using super clear epoxy. It's a tabletop, and this is our one-to-one mix, and it's awesome. This is the only epoxy that I've used, and I absolutely love it. So now you're just going to do your one-to-one mix. And get yourself a glue brush or whatever kind of brush you want to use, and then just start liberally applying this into the voids and on your edges. The reason that you want to seal this is so that when the epoxy, I guess if you were just to go ahead and pour without sealing this off, the wood itself is going to release air bubbles, and if you don't seal it, when you actually do your pour while it's curing, you're going to get air bubbles in it, and it's going to not ruin your work, but it's not going to make it make it look as clear as possible. And this is why you put this on here. So once you finish sealing your pieces of wood with the epoxy, let it cure for the recommended time, depending on the epoxy, usually around 24 hours for a thin layer like this. So it's completely cured. And then you're ready to start pouring your epoxy. And we'll show you how to do that in the next video. Take care, everybody.